Okay, so hopefully Chris will join us. We were going to have Horacio and Miguel with us as well. Unfortunately, they can't make it anymore. But just welcoming you all, obviously some familiar faces. I'm Maya, as many of you will know, Education Manager at the National Gallery, and I'm joined tonight by the Native Sons. Welcome, welcome. We have Brandy, Nasaria, Al, Ray, Gordon, and Nicola joining us via Zoom. So tonight is really just kind of a catch-up. Chatting about how the Native Sons started, where you've gone since then, and then a little bit about some of your individual art practices as well. So if you want to start maybe individually by talking about how did you become interested in art, in becoming an artist? Yeah, anyone can start, anyone.
I'm the younger one, so they go first.
Well, I'm Ali Weiss, and I've been painting all my life as I can remember. So it's been a while since, like, 26 years since Native Sons. Yeah. So it takes me back to, I think it's, in 88, I decided to become a full-time artist. And in early 90s, I moved into my studio. So I continued painting. And in 1994, well, I used to walk around with my portfolio. So I met
I've seen him in the clubs and everything.
I met Leslie Dickelman. And I think it was a visual art society. They used to have art shows and stuff. So I met Leslie, and she actually ran me down to encourage me to have a show. So she decided to invite myself, Miguel Perry, and Antonio Ramon to the governor's house. I think it was Charles House. I'm not sure if Charles. But Gores was the governor at the time. So we had a show there in 1994.
So 96.
96.
You didn't have, I don't think you have a name there.
No, we didn't decide on it. We met up with Miguel Perry, Antonio Ramon, myself, and Raymond.
Yeah.
And we decided, troubleshooting about getting together and deciding on the name. And I probably think I came up with the name. Ray might have some.
I think it was Anthony, from what I can remember.
And then we decided on the group. And then I think we joined our first show together was
February 96. I'm not good at dates, but I remember that.
96, yeah. And then Narsaya, Horatio joined us after.
Yeah.
And then Narsaya joined us. And we was kind of disputing on the name about adding Donna to the mix because she felt left out because of
Actually, that's
sons.
not true.
Yeah.
Other people were saying it, and I was saying that it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
Because it didn't flow in Native Sons and Daughters. It just felt corny. And then, I mean, it's not going to change my womanhood. So, like, it might change yours.
Yeah, this might change.
So our aim was to like develop and promote Caymanian artists. So we decided on Caymanian artists by at least one parent being Caymanian.
We have memory gone just
So
the question was how you started first of all,
we might as well go home. So answered everything. So I'm just briefing her about the history of when you started, why you got it. So you want to pick up,
we all have stories. No, the question was how you started out.
Okay.
Okay, I want to say how I started now. I mean, I think all of us could say, well, you know, as a child, you're always if you're gonna be that artistic, creative person, you kind of do that from time you're young, expressing yourself or emotions or whatever. But it was in college, I was at Howard University, and I was broke, and I had to do presents for people, and I just started painting on cloth or on jeans and that type of thing. Still didn't consider myself an artist, didn't think about exhibiting. And it wasn't until I came back in 1992 that I met up with Ray again. And then he introduced, we all to this idea of Native Sons or of a group. Huh?
96.
Well, I graduated in 1992. So then after that, these things were happening, and then you said to me, hey.
Yeah. I think I even remember you came up to us and said, I do it a lot too. Just, come on, let's get on board.
Yeah.
And actually, the second show was Native Sons 2, TOO, to include her, and Miss Lassie was in it too.
Right. Yeah.
That was it.
I don't remember that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You had like poster stuff from school and stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
Poster
that stuff.
board.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then it's
Maybe
just
I
like,
should be
it
doing
took a
the
while.
stuff thing.
It took a while before I,
And
was
I need to
yes,
say-
I'm an artist, but I couldn't live without it. I couldn't live without it. That kind of way. I can't not be creative.
It's part of who you are. It's
Yeah.
intrinsic to your personality, right? Sorry, Nicola, what were you going to say?
No, I was just saying that I remember us meeting in Nasari's classroom at high school. Me, Gordon, Randy, the three of us, we grew up together, and we kind of used to hustle, painting rocks and getting together and just, being creative and whatever we could possibly do. We used to hang out at Gordon's house before we discovered Nasaria.
Yeah.
And of
Was that
course,
96 or 98? You sure that's 98?
That's 98.
before we discovered
Is that it?
Nasaria's classroom.
Yeah.
And we started meeting there and, just kind of just going crazy for the first time, having materials. And Nasaria is organized, so she kind of pulled
Mama decided.
us all together. And then it was, and then an introduction to people who I'd always admired and thought, okay. Then Ray and all these guys, Horatio, and it was unbelievable coming from where we came from, because like with Randy, Gordon, and myself, I think we kind of just fell in, because it was either you run the street or just get creative, and we just we were the creatives of the people we ran with, so we kind of gravitated towards each other and stuff. And I remember one time I had stopped painting because I couldn't afford to buy paint, and I hadn't painted for so long. And Randy came over to my where I was living and gave me a tube of blue paint. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
And he came over and gave me a tube of blue paint, and he's like, "Just keep painting." And I can honestly say from that day, I if I only had one tube of paint and one color, I painted
I remember that series, by the way. I remember the series and everything was blue. It was a good series.
Yeah, it was.
It was, but everything was blue.
Yeah,
You used it.
but
You used that
it was like that with us. It was like if one person had materials, we would share it amongst ourselves, or we would get together. And then, like I said, once we met Nasaria, we would go on the beach, and it was art all the time. We talked about it, we dreamed about shows. And then to be one of the women invited to be a part of Native Sons, for me, I didn't want them to change Native Sons. I wanted to be good enough to be one of the sons, right? So to be one of two women in a group of all men, being good enough, or feeling that I was good enough, that they thought I was good enough to be a part of that select group, to represent Cayman art. It gave me a sense of pride and ownership of Caymanian art that I didn't feel before. And even now at home, like where I am now, it's like nothing will ever be home. I am native, and I am a son of Cayman soil. And I know people all the time keep saying to me, is like, "You're not here, so why are you minding our business?" I said, Cayman business will be my business till the day they put me in the ground. I am a native son, and that is not just my art, that is every grain of who I am. And I just love being a part of Native Sons. I love the fact that each one of us our work is so individual, but it's so rooted in our Caymanianness, since our experiences as Caymanians is what has made us unique in our creativity. You know, it's you can give us anything, any person sitting on that panel, anything you give them, they can turn it into something creative. I mean, the first time I saw Ray's work, oh, my head was blown. I walked into Al's studio and it was like, I gotta get better, I gotta get better, I gotta get better. And I love that feeling of being driven, because these people here, they never stop growing. And I don't think anyone in Cayman has seen the absolute best of Native Sons or anyone on that panel, because every year they grow. You might not see a show from Native Sons, you might not see a new piece of work, but I can tell you that these people sitting here, it never stops.
Well,
It's in everything that they do.
Nicola, one of the things that you said is something that we always said about when people ask us, like, what was the point of Native Sons or what was unique? And it's like, I always say it's the Caymanian art inspired by the Caymanian experience from inside the house, not the outside looking in.
I was just gonna
And
say that
that's what
too.
was important.
Like I'm looking around right now at those paintings that you see up there, they actually inspired us, because when we were growing up, that was the epitome of fine art in Cayman. And I remember seeing, where was it, Kennedy Gallery, I think, and listening to a Caymanian go say that that's Caymanian art. And I personally don't connect. I like them, and I've done similar things talking about them. One in particular, Paint by Numbers house. But I always say that where the people, like my Milo is in the house, in those houses, the fisherman that you see in those palm tree things. I've got a series of painting. My big eye guys, that's the fisherman. I'm sitting right next to the fisherman. I'm feeling the iron shore, or sharp iron shore, as I'm getting pricked by the soldier and the cook. And I'm smelling the smells and stuff, so that's why it's different from these. It's my answer. Maybe we have the same basic topics, I would say, but ours is from that inside that point of view, in the yard playing marbles or something like that. So
It's the insiders.
Native perspective.
Sorry? Yeah.
Native perspective.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, it drove me crazy because I don't like landscapes. So I've only done like 2 Caymanian houses in my life, and it was one was a perspective class, and then all my grandfather's house. And it's a perspective class in college, and then Paint by Numbers, talking about Cayman painting #1, Cayman painting. So,
Were there other elements of sort of the Caymanian experience outside of, sort of seascape paintings or the story of the maritime heritage
that we
that
connect.
you particularly wanted to express through your work as a collective and individually?
I mean,
I didn't think it started out, it just came out.
yeah, I think it was natural, because you're gonna paint you're gonna create from your life experiences, like what you experience. And like, I think maybe you've seen me do 2 Cayman houses, because I didn't grow up in one.
But
Right.
your
I
colored water and the cross piece and stuff.
Right, so that's the connection, is like those elements from inside the house, which would have been my grandmother's house and those type of things. So I think it naturally grew out of all of us.
That and our parents.
I did the houses for the longest time, but the reason behind why I did it is because I grew up in one of those houses and it no longer existed, along with my whole entire neighborhood. But for me, when I do the house, it's more than just a house, It's like something that will exist or won't exist again.
And it's like memorializing that time period in a way.
And there's a different color to it when you've lived inside it, when you paint. It's a different color to it. You can feel almost the smells and the life that happened in there, So
Yeah, because all of those different senses sort of build into
Yeah.
into what you're doing on a canvas or whatever it is, whatever material you're working with. And that was another of my questions. Many of you work with other kinds of artistic forms. So some of you are musicians or graphic designers or curators. How do you feel that those different forms that you're working with inform the work that you're doing as visual artists? If they do.
Well, yeah, they definitely do. The music and art, it has the same principles, layers. Art has layers, music has layers. You have bass, you have mid, you have. When I'm doing art, I'm listening to music because the vibration of the music helps with the art. It helps things to flow along with my own natural. Because even everything in our body has rhythm. The heart has rhythm, the brain, everything has rhythm. The cells, the one, everything is rhythm. And art is the same thing. Because when you painting as an artist, you're getting in touch with cosmic rhythms or whatever name you want to put on it, inspiration or whatever name. You're getting in touch, you know what I mean? It's rhythm, everything. So they all connect.
I think the beauty of it is that even though we're so many, it's native sons, and I'm going to go back, I'm saying native sons, but each one of us have individual aspects of art that we pull from. Like, I love abstract because I like the vibrancy and the movement of color. I like the feelings and the emotions. Like, I paint with my emotions. So you might see something from several years ago and it's dark and it's kind of, frankly, I don't like to look at some of that stuff because it brings back emotions of what I was going through at the time, what I lived through, the darkness of what I was experiencing at that time. Each one of us, some paint in representation. Some do illustrations, but we all paint from a different place. But if you put them together, and I've seen really good curation of all of our work where you can read kind of a history and you can actually get the feel and the kind of the story of the person and you get their personality through their work. And I enjoy seeing that because it's like reading my history in art. Like, these guys don't know that I hunt online to find their work because I can't see it in real life anymore. I hunt to find their work, to just see like where they're at. Ray just posted a self-image that he drew in pencil, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking,
How good does that look?
I miss that because he
Does it look like Ray?
doodles a lot.
I was thinking
Doodles a lot. No, I'm not a stalker. I just appreciate
I was shocked when I saw that.
I haven't done that like in years.
Yeah.
Their
Like,
work
decades.
has a kind of a connection that I don't have with anybody else in the world. And I can get on the phone and talk to Al for like hours.
Does he get a word?
It's all about art. As it,
Are
We talked
there,
for hours there because
I'll listen for
are there
hours.
sort of elements of each other's work or specific pieces maybe that each other have done that have really interested you? Chris, maybe is there someone here or a work from someone here that has really made you think, wow, I'd like to try something like that, or has really inspired you?
Well, Al has been a very big influence on Miguel, because when I was growing up, we were neighbors, so when he would draw cat quotes and stuff, I would always be inspired by that. And I think everyone has different styles, even with Randy and Ray, like his styles of capturing certain moments and his sketches of all these different things. So I think, everybody, Gordon's style of point wisdoms or spots, I think it's something that once you kind of round it inspires you, and you end up sort of capturing that in a way that implement it in your work. But I would say Al in itself has been a very strong influence. He's the one who got me into Native Sons, him and Miguel. So from there, I think even being exposed to his work and learning really how to paint a lot of different things from all the group, like when you have a show or trying to sketch or do things, Ray would say, okay, Chris, this is this. Ray is the one who actually taught me to stretch canvas. So you learn all these different things from everybody, different pieces that we didn't really have in Caymanian groups that we do. Also, of course, there were shows or things that you could do workshops, but it wasn't something where you could connect to in a different level. So I think that's one of the reasons Native Sons kind of became very strong to all of us, because we learned from each other, even though we were still learning. We were still growing. We didn't have nothing to sort of gravitate to, because things were around weren't really connected to us at that level, like the roots or the kind of soul level. There were things that we could understand, the composition, the colors are nice, like they look, like even Miss Berry with her work, she was one of my teachers. So even some of her style was influenced. Miss Lassie's stuff with some of her shapes and forms. I mean, I think it's just sort of appreciating all the art around you and realizing that everyone still has an influence in each other. You can't just say, "Oh, well, this is my style and that's it." Everyone still plays a part in each other, even though we want, this is mine, this is it, but it doesn't really work that way.
I think things seep in naturally from each other, but then also when you live together. We fight over materials. I was the first one started using that black enamel. But
I was thinking about the black enamel actually, because we were watching some interviews with you guys, and both of you were mentioning it.
Exactly. But I think for me, one of the things that really inspired me, I've never told him this, and I've never lived this down, but raised sort of tongue in cheek, like it's so smart. And
I'm a big toe.
it's amazing.
You never told me that.
I'm telling
So
you
you
that,
mash me
and
up.
I don't want to hear it repeated.
And Glory to Glory from Gordon. And Nasaria's Long Neck Girl series. I love that series.
I wish I still had it.
Pardon?
I wish I still had that painting.
She buys
Oh,
back.
there's a story.
She buys back her paintings.
From Al. I love Al's old work, but his recent sculptures, I could eat them, because I think
What
Al.
sculptures are
They're
those?
not edible.
Yeah, the king.
One of them looks like Cheetos.
No, but they're so tactile and so, like, I think Al has always said that he's the best, but he has.
I remember that. I never remember that.
I think that's the best spots, isn't it? The
Now
best spots.
the truth comes out.
I didn't say that.
But that's
Always
what
tell me
keeps
that,
me
that's-
going, because every time he says he's the best, I've got to prove to him that I'm better, because I'm competitive. I mean, Randy, I love Randy's work. It's just, I don't know, it's just something crazy about the way he does his paints and stuff like that. Like, when I look at some of his paintings when they're done, I want to lick the paint. It's that kind of tactile. I'm weird.
Look around there. She come and licking the beats.
Stop her free.
I hear you.
So I just trying to see what I like about everybody's work and what I thought, and I mean, that's Randy. Randy puts this kind of energy in his work that makes you just want to reach out and be a part of it.
People want to
Chris's
touch it
work.
a lot.
They definitely
Yes,
do.
and Chris's work. I like.
We have
Chris has a thing. He likes these like really warm colors, and he puts them together, and it's kind of like when you meet him, you get that kind of a warm thing. He always looks like he's about to start smiling, and you get that in his work. You kind of, look at he's about to smile right now. But and with Horatio, I mean, how can you not look at the work that he does in Caymanite and just say, dear God, if I could look at that in the ground and imagine the things that he does with it, it's just like they speak to him on a level they don't speak to anybody else. And his work, you want to touch it, you just want to be a part of it, and just knowing him, you just feel like you're a part of it. Miguel's work, again, you get this kind of earthy Cayman feel that makes you just stare at it and think, I could be there right now. And I know it sounds weird, but that's how I feel about this group of people. They all bring something to the table that makes you want to be better, a better person, a better artist, a more, you just want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And you feel a sense of pride that you don't get anywhere else. And even when pride is something that people tend to shy away from now, in your heart, it's locked away. It's a part of who you are. And that's the brilliance and the beauty of being a part of Native Sons.
And to teach and challenge.
Sorry,
each other.
guys.
Yeah.
You talked about sort of those early years. Don't apologize. That's great. I think those early years of sort of sharing knowledge with each other and sharing materials. So tell me more about the early years and what it really looked like. Were you meeting at specific times, or were you just kind of calling up each other? Did you meet sort of as a show was coming up? How did that work?
Or like today, Nasaria was calling, going, "Where are you?"
That's could touch on the like the non-artistic stuff, I guess. Like we're more like a support group, ended up being like a support group for each other.
Yeah, because like, I mean, if I started doing something, I wasn't sure what direction I was gonna go in. The thing about it is about asking other people about your work, about whether you can continue. You know, is this going in the right direction? What do you think? What are your suggestions? Is that you need to trust them. And that was the big thing with us, is that I could trust that there were no motives that were, you know, not just about having us all grow. That if somebody said to me, yeah, that's really looking this way, maybe try this or suggest, I mean, I just sent him an image what?
This morning?
This morning or yesterday, saying, what do you think? And he said, the hair is competing with the face. And I was like, thank you. And he was right. So it's just about having that other perspective, but having, and now I think at this age, I think we also are able to hear the advice, but then also know who we are and decide whether or not that is what you need to do, right? Whereas back then, I think it was like, if they told me to go fling it up in the tree, I was probably gonna go do it. But that was what it was for us, and we would meet,
Mostly
we had
before
set
the show.
times, before the show, but then sometimes we just turn up at each other's house
Yeah.
and just like,
Yeah, and talk.
and have them talk about our
One group would talk and just
Gathering as friends too, right? Not
Yeah.
just as a collective.
Let's
And
go.
were those shows sort of? Did you organize the shows? How did those come about?
We organize the show.
Well, thank God for Nasaria coming. Let's just say, because I always say, get a group of people together, get a group of Caymanians together, get a group of Caymanian artists together. So it was, thank God for Nasaria. When she came, it was like, everybody saying, how come you do no work? And I'm like, this is my work, because to sort of get back to the beginning, Al and Miguel, who else? Like I said, that group that exhibited at the governor's house. Yeah, and Anthony. To me, that I would say that we didn't name the group then. It was, I wouldn't call it Native Sons, but it was the National Gallery is tied into it, because I don't know if you know Native Sons, the National Gallery formed sort of at the same, around about the same time in the late 80s. And Native Sons was actually, natives. That Native Sons was actually formed to show then Culture Minister Makiba Bush that there was a reason for the National Gallery. I don't know how many people know that. And I remember talking to him saying, yeah, we need this because the other cultural institutions aren't really focusing on fine art. And so we need this. And another thing was, Leslie didn't know that I did art, and I wasn't really doing fine art at the time, to get back to that original question, but when did you do art? Which was 17 and in high school, A-level technical drawing, by the way, for me. Just to answer that question. So we all were formed because they needed to know that Caymanians did art. So, and there was no such thing as Caymanian art. We had to answer that so many times, so many interviews. Now it's like, oh, Caymanian art. I'm a Caymanian artist. It's like, now you don't even have to batch that thing. Now I'm a contemporary Caymanian art.
I heard of bands and heights.
I think the question now is, what is Caymanian art? And you get that all the time. And what makes it Caymanian art? You still get those questions. And why are you a Caymanian artist and not an international artist? And I think because I'm Caymanian and I'm Caymanian artist first before you can be anything else. Like we start at home, that's where we started, right? And no matter where we end up, that's where we're gonna end up, in Cayman. And it doesn't matter where you are. I am a Caymanian and I am an artist. So I'm a Caymanian artist. What I produce is always going to be influenced. I'm over here and I look around at all the artists here in this country, and I still do not see anyone coming close. And I mean, maybe I'm biased, but the color usage that we have, I mean, the colors that I use here, it's like sunshine. It's a part of Cayman that's in me that I can't like hide. Like I start using, we never thought about putting those colors together. I'm like, yeah, well, if you've been in Cayman and the sun comes out and everything is bright green and blue and the sky is, the colors in Cayman is just unreal. And they've taken me to places here where they're like, oh, the light here is just like the Caribbean. And I'm like, no, you have the sun in this part, but it looks nothing like my Cayman. And I've never been anywhere in the States, anywhere in the world where the color and the feel is the same. And it influences everything. Like you can take me out of Cayman, but you can't take Cayman out of me. And that is represented in every stroke of the brush, every color combination, I mean, I see things around here, but when I draw those influences, they're colored by my Caymanian experience. They don't become me. I don't become that stuff. I actually color it, and I say I color it Cayman. I put Cayman in everything that's done around here. I am here, but I am not of here. I am here, but I am not part of here. I can be influenced by the things here, but it still doesn't change that. I mean, I do abstract, I do real life, but it has, for me, it's the feel of home. I surround myself with my artwork and I look at it and I'm like, yep, I know where I remember that color from. And that native sun green that Ray created.
PMS 377. PMS 3. And the font is first grade, if you want to.
No, but you know, it's your combination. I remember when you first did that and you sent it out to all of us, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I think you did maybe 2 or 3 different types of representation of how we wanted to put Cayman. And then you put those, and it's great. Every little touch. I mean, Gordon hasn't said a word, right? And that's Gordon's.
You
have an idea how the meetings went now?
This is how the meetings go.
That's how the meetings go.
He's taking it all in. He's absorbing.
It should be about 45 minutes, but it normally go about 2 hours.
Anyway, Native Sons, the original group, lent their authenticity to the National Gallery to represent Caymanian artists and the need for a gallery, a national Cayman gallery. And they in turn validated to all the newcomers by hosting Native Son shows. And people that would never have even known that there was a Native Son group or a collective called Native Sons that produced
I remember
artwork of substance in Cayman.
One of the first meetings, they
Got
looked at me and said,
introduced to Cayman
I seen you before, but I didn't know you do that.
Pardon?
That's why you had, I think you had
Ray
a
was
shirt.
telling
or
the story
something.
that Al saw him and that he'd seen him before, but didn't know that he did or that he did.
Like at the first meeting.
Yeah.
I think Leslie Regelman took us with the first 2. And she basically helped us with the invitations and mailing lists and stuff. And after that, I was like, no, we just need to get branded and stuff. And we had interest in meeting because we came up with the heads. I don't know if you saw the original. We have a shirt that's like a collector's item.
I have my dot.
Yeah, that's exactly. And we came up with the heads, and you know when deadlines are supposed to come and people on it. So I'm like, okay, well I'm gonna make you a head. You're not submitted what your head is. I'm gonna make that.
I think you drew my head like.
Was it me? Did you? No,
Yeah, you did my head. We did all the heads.
Yeah, I think we did all.
I digitized them anyway, but that's the only artwork I think I got of.
It was good for his time.
I draw my own head.
Yeah, Al did his own.
I have to be in control.
Yeah, that's true. And so the first meeting, where was that? That was at Queen's Court.
Let's go there,
That thing.
upstairs.
Wives got involved. We don't like how that is, blah, 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 blah. This is a joke. And so all of that stuff you had to navigate and all that stuff. You weren't at that one. You weren't at that one. That was one of the first ones.
But Pearl Black was before.
Pearl was.
Pearl never,
Pearl was
Pearl
before
was
you.
after.
Yeah.
No, she was
I
after.
think the Saudi came in on the second one.
Yeah.
We've had like how many now? 6. The last one was 6.
Early the one, early the
So
one
did
down
you,
was
were
last.
your first meetings in that Queen's Court space?
The first meetings were in the studio, Culture Foundation studio. And then we had some outside, and Queen's Court. and
Yeah,
campus.
oh,
one was
gosh, I
Queen's
remember those.
That's right.
And then
First
you
one
moved
was
to
that.
your classroom after that.
Well, yeah, that was
Different
was-
location, we never had, I
Yeah,
think we
just
would have
wherever.
abused whatever location
Yeah.
and go to another one.
Yeah. And I mean that, I didn't even realize that the classroom played that much of a role. I was just interested in the studio.
You didn't know that, Randy, you would be.
Not really,
Stop.
not at the beginning.
Stop.
But you know, when we were talking about, native sons and like who, like there were no sort of Caymanian artists or defining what Caymanian art is, but over time, and the question you asked about how the other things that you do that are creative influence your work. So I do a lot of cultural heritage research. So then that always ends up showing up in my artwork. And I get to meet people and get to know about other artists. Like there was an artist in East End who was a pastor and he did nudes and he got like kicked out of his church and the church was burned down. And the children have, like, they say that they have some of his art, but they will not let me get in the shed to see it. Because it's like a part of that sort of whole shame of who he was, and it's in there getting like mildew in it, and I feel like breaking in. I said that on camera. But you know what I'm saying is like there were people who were struggling and wanting to express themselves, but society would not
I
allow
would
it.
say we cannot miss out Bendo. For me, like sixth form, we had a visit from Bendo and I went to see his pieces. And I remember seeing his way back when his first one was in the 70s, I think. Date myself there a little bit. And I was like, oh, great, I came out an artist. So I expected this realism thing and like this real technical person. And he had mother and it was just a circle and a rectangle or something. And I'm like, oh. This is in the 70s came out. So that was in my mind when we were doing Native Son. That's why you see these labels that we all have that you use stuff here. We were the first ones that did that. And I remember Natalia going, I really don't want to do these. And we had bios and all that stuff. And I recognized like how Bendel, I recognized the great work he did and then how it was Caymanian and how people were not getting that. The general public were not getting that. Like he thought, I could tell he was homesick when I talked with him or saw his work. And talking about the colors, I saw like this one gray bricked New York one. And I was like, boy, that depresses me and all that stuff. So I could tell, and I actually had to write a paper. And I hated the fact that when I got friends with him, he's like, he wanted to see it. And I threw it away. I got like an A- or something off of it or something like that. It took about 15 times to rewrite it. A- and 11, 6 form. And, but him and also, what's his name? Bush, Philip Bush.
Philip, yeah.
He had a mural in high school. And I can't remember. I'm trying to think if it's still there. I mean,
It's not there. It was on the career, on the
Did they knock it
art
down?
block or the career block?
on an art block. And
Oh,
that I remember
it might still be.
lunchtime looking at it. It was like sort of like the tree of man or life or something like that. And I was like, wow.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
It's like great.
Yeah, you probably didn't.
Okay,
He had
right,
left.
or something.
Like he was near my
I came
sister.
and did that.
Yeah.
See,
Philip Bush himself. He
And
works.
then there was.
We tried to get him, or I tried to get him, and he's like, no, he don't want to do art no more. And he's like, the father has all his artwork and stuff.
Yeah,
He did this one with these orbs coming through this Cayman house.
there's,
window and all that
there's
stuff.
another guy that does, I forget the artist that he's
Oh.
sort of inspired by, but all of his artwork is currently in the top of above the ceiling, and he won't let anybody see it. I've seen 2 pieces because his sister showed me. I can't count his name. But it's like people are still hiding their work.
But it's not, I mean, I'm doing research more from a radio show and stuff, and I'm listening to the person with the arch who designed the gold field from a model, and he said when he was sculpting it and sanding it down, he was imagining it going through the water and all that, and I'm like, that's a fine artist.
Yeah.
He's a fine artist, and I mean, everything was geared or to utilitarian stuff, built well and stuff like that. And all that, even though I'm not a nautical person, I'll wait for you to come out the boat and bring the fish and all that. I get some wilts for you and all that stuff. But I don't like the water. But I still got some water in me.
They have the same sensibility. And
Yeah,
the same
I
kind of
definitely could relate. And I was like, we say we don't have any artists, but we definitely it's in our blood.
I mean, when you have little or nothing and you're making beautiful things out of it, like the chicken feed stock, and you're making clothes out of that, and you gotta wash out the label, or if you've made underwear, you could leave the label on, kind of way. So I think that there's a lot of innovation, we just don't name it. We have a habit in Cayman, we don't realize what a thing is. We don't realize this is heritage. We don't realize this is our culture. We just say it's what we do, right? And we don't realize the value.
And that's part of the work, as you said, of what Native Sons did.
And that's why I had the first series I did was Oh My Toe. And everybody, you need to do one about this. I was like, exactly.
Yeah.
So you got the next series. I don't need to do that anymore. The Milo was to go, this is culture. When you take bread and butter and dip it in there, that's culture. You go to Jamaica and they say, oh no, not bread and butter, it's something else. Right. So I wanted to speak to Cayman and the region, and I found out the region extends all the way to Africa, Congo. I'm on the flight to Hong Kong and stuff, and this woman is, in Malaysia we have Milo, blah blah blah. So the conversation of Milo like spreads out so big, and like I said, it's inside the house on the table, and you got whatever's next to you when you're doing your Milo. But I wanted to bring that to say, just with something simple as Milo, isolated as Milo, you can spread that out to whatever.
Yeah,
like Desires, cross piece, and thatch, thatch, banana, thrush. Thank you.
We do so many tours, obviously, of the exhibits, and that Milo piece is one that.
Yeah, you need to get another one. That thing, I need to give you all. You need to buy another one because I'm tired of seeing that. Honestly, because I'm tired of seeing that. I'm like, oh my god, that's like the only work I've done. That's like from.
Right, the museum's got one.
They got two. They got two other ones. Maybe you could borrow
No,
them.
she borrowed those two.
And please put the board. Please put the little board. I keep saying, please put the little board in there because it just looks like it's flying, floating away. Because it needs the little. You don't know how much I tried to put that little piece of wood in there.
But when I walked through the gallery here recently with Kemka, who's an artist from Nigeria, really connected with your work.
Okay.
And that's the thing that I'm jealous of. Like, I tell stories with my work, but I get tired.
Yeah.
But it's just who I am, and that's how I do it. But for you, it's just that cleanness, that I like your work because it gives me a break from.
Well, that's for me too, because I love color, but I love minimalism. Like I need to rest because all that stuff, abstract stuff, is already in my head, so I need to
After you had a job, you start
I wanted
resting.
to actually ask about what Ray said about the labels, being hesitant to put the labels up.
Yeah.
Is it part of that? Is it because of kind of not wanting to explain too much?
I think Nasaria had the most trouble with it, so.
Yeah, I don't remember why. I think
you said I just want to put it up. I don't want to explain it.
It might have been that like not wanting to like.
I think we're lazy. She didn't want the visual and the writing.
Never been lazy. Might have been tired from helping
That's
with
true.
everything else, but it might have been not. But I know sometimes like back then I think I was a bit more cautious about what I said about what I did because I mean, yes, I had because I still had to think like my sister wants to go to college, she might need a scholarship. Like that's how it is here. So I had to be careful.
I'm crazy.
Because the understanding of visual art came out still very much.
Yeah.
I mean, we had people in our family going, "Why is the neck so long?" You know, there are a lot of challenges.
So I think that was important. From the reception we got, I remember Al at the end of the thing going, "Ray, we like rock stars."
all very highly decorated individuals. And with perception, is perception important? Are the awards important? Are they just kind of like something that kind of pushes you to continue, or would you say that they're not important with your practice at all?
Not for me.
Not for you.
Not, I mean, you don't have to stop giving us, but I mean, we're not gonna stop
My whole
because,
thing is, if the resources are there and I'm Caymanian, then I would like to, I don't wanna see everybody else getting them and we're not getting them, we're deserving of them. But it's not what motivates me to work. I just always believe in being present. I remember hearing people say, oh, such and such a place, that's just for expatriates to go hang out. I was like, but we didn't go. So I'm gonna be present and I'm gonna keep pushing. But if I have to do my work, where I am now, if I have to do my work and it's just sitting in my house and I'm just looking at it, I'm good. Like that's where you have to get to really be able to do truthful work.
although I don't think our work is complete until somebody else sees it. So,
But my other personalities see it. So.
Gordon looks like he disagrees.
and then talking about
I'll
awards,
never get anything done.
talking about awards, I mean, I do it for me. If I don't please, I'm the worst one to please, and if it don't please, that's why a lot of stuff don't get done because I'm not pleased. So it's
When I got my award, I was
which
told,
one? Which one?
I was told that I got an award because of being friends with some other people.
Friends? With friends?
Which one?
Friends.
Yeah.
Which award did you get?
Heroes,
Oh, heroes, right?
the #1 award. Gold.
Because you were friends with somebody? I thought you needed something. I thought you needed something.
No, someone told me that I
One of us?
Yes,
Are
yes,
you
one of
I
us
was on
told
the
us,
committee
told
and
me
that's
that
not true.
I did not deserve the award. I got it because I was friends with higher powers.
But that's
Nadia
like
has confirmed that is
I was
untrue.
on the committee and I was part of the voting, that's not.
which one though? Which one you talking?
It was just
The
Thomas-
heroes,
Thomas-
just because you knew Natalie.
heroes there.
Oh,
Part of
well,
it.
somebody must be a problem.
If it's any consolation, I don't think you should get it.
You were gonna say something.
Yeah, I think they're useful. It's not the end all be all, but it has a purpose. Like competition has a purpose as well because it pushes you differently. You know what I mean? Although you're supposed to push yourself on an everyday basis, but it still brings out, a little competition.
Yeah, I mean, I think during the
I love competition, right?
yeah, I think during the show, I know for me, like, remember we did a McCoy Prize, and I knew everybody could do paint, so I went and did pencil on paper. You remember the superhero thing? But I mean, even with, I come from a badminton background where I'm like, was it #1 in, non-sports people. But I was #1 in the country for like 10 years, so that personality is not. Yeah,
I know.
I see your basketball too, and I could have took him back.
I don't know.
But it shows up to me, like I was competing with them, like I know what she's gonna do, so I'm gonna do this. But it's still
He was good at badminton, but you thought you could have
squash,
squash,
yeah,
yes,
he cheats
squash.
so much, it's so many lets in his game. And but just I knew, but still there was like that camaraderie, like it was, we have that thing, but it's like no, they can't.
It's healthy competition, right?
Yeah.
On top of supporting each other, you're also meant to challenge each other as well,
Yeah.
right?
I think you can see the difference in our work, like after the first couple of years on shows, like we really thought, okay, really, this is where I need to, this direction I need to go more. Like it was, we all said the same thing, but we represented it in different ways, and I think that was a success for it too. It was not like monochromatic or mono idea, if that's a word. It wasn't that blah. Okay, it's just this. We all had different mediums, different way of representing. We were all individuals, and that's what everybody got.
It gets a little strange when you have the competition living with you now. That's the
Well, she kind of is living with me in the phone. Like,
One of the shows I think that we did that sort of pushed us to different levels was the Raw show. I think when we did
that wasn't a native son necessarily, but it was Al's and
that's one
of
it was
them.
only Newland that wasn't native son.
we almost got everything finalized. So Lula and Ivan took off all our notes. And trust me, if you ever been to one of them administrative native son meetings, Oh my God.
I
And
wish we
were-
had vapes back then.
So you had a lot of
I wish I had paintball guns back then.
Yeah, until I mean, you see it in this room, right? It's like trying to
Like I
keep all like
said,
this.
for a bunch of individuals, or a bunch of
Yeah.
Caymanians.
Rock came about because of the like National Gallery or the museum. You couldn't show like the groups and stuff. So
That's kind of like the uncensored show at
we had to
Kensington.
go underground
And then Ray has a lot of stuff that's hidden in his drawings that
Yeah.
no one else could see. But
But I'll see them, so I don't know what that says.
see.
I don't know what that says.
Glass of
I'll keep it on solo show saying, Ray, you dirtier than me. I said, what do you mean? I know what you mean. You don't have to play that with me.
You're
Were you
always
there
Where's
from
he?
once it came? What was
From,
yours?
from whence we came.
Yeah.
That one was obvious though.
No, it wasn't.
That was obvious.
But I think that's kind of why that whole process of trying to this is in my memory what I think happened to how we started to sort of like not end, but because we all stayed together, but like the organization kind of like drifted apart, was outside influences trying, saying, well, this person should be in it, and this person wants to be in Native
Yeah,
Center,
we
this
actually got a
person-
big blowback.
and then
when
we
first started.
tried to define things and we could not agree. And that's what happened. And we kept on saying, we're just a group, leave us alone, we're just a group, we just want to.
We got a lot of blowback in the beginning because we were all Caymanian, but we were like trying to define something, and if we didn't keep it that way, it would have just been, you wouldn't have got what you got now.
And we weren't invited to the other
Yeah.
organizations.
And like I said, I would die if I had to do a landscape. I would die. Or somebody would die.
Our first show I was asked like, where's the boats?
Yeah,
Where's the
we did our first interview by radio, art show by radio. Okay, so I'm just gonna say that.
I said, I don't take boats. I don't.
Yeah, we
take
don't
boats.
boats.
said that.
But we did though. We
This is
like
yeah,
I did
abstract.
the by over the hook and stuff like that going fishing.
Because we have your piece upstairs permanently because Bloxley always asks where the cat is now.
Still acting.
At least it's there. Yeah.
So you talked about what the landscape of, sorry, I had to put it in there, I had to throw it in, what the landscape of Cayman was like when you first started the group. How do you think the sort of visual art space has changed since then? How have you seen it develop in good ways or ways that you still feel are maybe a little bit challenging?
I think it's
Okay.
I think we reached a stage. I think we reached a stage where we can have more critics. We can say, well, that's right. We can reach that. We haven't seemed like we reached that maturity level yet. Like not everything that we put out there is great.
Right.
You
And
know.
you know what I would prefer is if somebody said it to me. It's okay for somebody to say to you, I don't think that worked out.
Yeah.
Or I think in the next time you do something, let's go this direction, because you need criticism.
Yeah, that's what really grows.
You
an
need,
industry.
And what I love to see that's happening now is a lot of young Caymanian artists. You have Reno, John Reno Jackson, Martina, like people pushing through and sort of developing their own voice.
Well, they've got more opportunities
And
than
they,
we had.
and they have all
You got this
this
social
handle of
media thing that you
technology
can
that's way
Yeah,
beyond.
I mean, I gotta say, I know I said it in an email to Natalie, but her push and her drive to encourage young people and to get young people the art education through the National Gallery has been phenomenal compared to what we had when we were coming up. I mean, Gordon was a graphic artist. He would, if it walked past his door, he would paint it, right? And we used any kind of paint we can have. I mean, some paints that we really shouldn't have been using. If you close the door, you die from inhalation. It was just to be able to create, right? We just used anything we could get our hands on. We didn't have the opportunity of people saying, come, we have funds. Here you go. Here's an opportunity for you to do this. We basically used what we could, things that we shouldn't have been using. But the drive to create was so intense that we had to do it. It wasn't a choice to be, hip or cool or anything like that. I mean,
But Nicola, there are a lot more opportunities now, but there's
Yes.
also so many voices out there.
Yeah.
And I think what we had, what I value was space to become who we wanted to be. I can't imagine you have to be so strong now to know who you are and what your intention is.
yes.
Because there's so
That- I
many
agree.
things telling you should be doing this. I mean, imagine if I was trying to compete with like all the technology. It's
Yes.
just not my thing.
But I
So,
have found
I would quit.
that the lack of imagination has seriously impacted creativity, because people seem to have this idea of what art is, and there's this sameness that has creeped into creativity. Everybody's kind of going for the same thing and thinking that it's somehow different. But I know that where I came from, it was my personality and my experiences that colored my work. And as 8 or 10 people, I mean, it started out as 2 or 3, and we grew in numbers in Native Sons. And yeah, we influenced each other, but we never became the other person. We never craved to, I didn't crave to be Al. Al didn't crave to be Ray. Ray didn't crave to be Gordon. We all developed. Or Chris and Randy, we never wanted to be the other person. But I found with all the opportunities out there, the creativity pool has actually narrowed to the point where it's indistinguishable from, I mean, you walk around to several galleries and there are people just emulating each other.
Well, we don't even have that opportunity.
Yeah, the first time I did an installation, it was like, what is that? And like, what's an installation? How's that art? You think, I don't care if you think it's art, it's what I felt, and that's what I put there. That is my expression of what I wanted to create. And I choose how to do that. And that is something that I don't think anybody on that panel has ever lost. There are things from each one of these people on this panel that you will never see, that will probably never see the light of day, because it's so personal.
We'll lock her
I
in the
think
shed
that's-
with the nudes now. Make sure we get to see that at some point.
But I think that's what keeps our creativity going, because there's a part of us that we keep for ourselves. Because as soon as you make it known, like as soon as you put a label on it, it no longer belongs to you. As soon as you put it up on a wall in a gallery, as soon as another person sees it, it's no longer yours. And I think I can speak safely to say that our work is an expression of our personalities and a deep kind of, it's a part of us. And every time we do something, we put it out in the public, we're putting a part of ourselves out there. And I, for one, I know when I put something out there and I put a label on it, I don't care I can't say I don't care where it goes. At first, I was really funny about selling things. But once I put it in the public eye, when someone else sees it, it's no longer my work. It's no longer me. It's their interpretation of it. It's their liking of it. So the amount of canvases and pieces of paper that we've torn up in a year would foam out Trashmore 10 times over, I think. Because there are things that we do that are just us, that we cannot put in the public. And that keeps us going. Whereas nowadays, a lot of people create just to show a talent that they've learned.
One of the things that the gallery has, that I feel that would you say the landscape, that's been really good is meeting curators and meeting other artists from the region. I think that helps, because then you have people coming in, and when we're here, we're a bit isolated. You're not sure like where you sit.
It's like cousins that you just meet for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. And even like also I've met like a bunch of artists through Tilly's. They have a program, the residency program, and that's also been really good. But meeting the curators, learning how to navigate that, I still don't have it all down, but like it helps them to influence like what you're doing, and that when you meet the next curator, you kind of have a better idea of what you need to be presenting, what you need to be sharing, those type of things. So I think that's what's exciting about what's happening now, and I watch young people navigate that like that. Like to them, they're so used to it. But hey, I'm gonna become competition. So.
Sorry. This question is kind of towards both Nicola and the rest of the board here. I don't know if you can hear me, Nicola, but you mentioned how today everybody's art is, not everybody, but like there's a lot of similarities between people's artworks as compared to like maybe 40, 50 years ago. How would you tell younger artists today to navigate through that with the likes of social media, where you can go through like 1,000 pictures in a minute and be easily influenced by different people's work that could ultimately lead you to create something like theirs?
Stand out, find a way to stand out. It's like I said, automatic for me. Like when I go to, I guess it's a competitive nature. If I go to a community or whatever, and I see what work they're producing, I just do the opposite sort of. That's kind of what I did, like pencil on paper, went back to pencil on paper for like a competition. But still be yourself. I mean, you have a unique view on everything, that colors, that a filter, your unique filter, and you have to put that in your art. But you're influenced by people, but don't let it color necessarily your vision. Yeah. You're supposed to have your own.
Right, because your experience is your own experience. I've never been a young Nigerian man in London, and so
that wears Crocs.
Everywhere. So you have your own unique experience. We've talked about a couple of things like just in your household, but we connect. Talking about your mother's kitchen. And if you stay there too long, you put on about 20 pounds, and how they're going to feed you when you get back home and stuff like that. So you have these commonalities, but how you're going to say it and how you experience it is totally different.
In my DNA says I'm mostly Nigerian too. Congolese.
I hate to be typecast into like styles, because when someone said to me like, I love the direction you're going, I run the other way. So that's why I have different like styles
and it has to be you though. It has to be.
And then also my second question to kind of counter in a sense with that, you mentioned how you didn't have, all your styles are different, and you didn't have anybody to really kind of affect or influence how you made your work necessarily. But then I was talking to Nasaria at the gallery, and I told her that the Milo tin to me was my Campbell soup.
Yeah,
So I wanted to know, like, was there anything at the time when you were making art that was influencing you? And said,
definitely the old masters and stuff. I mean, I did some art history and stuff. So I tell you, the biggest sort of change with personal work was Georgetown Library, of all places, that old places. I got this half a torn up book on Impressionism, and it was when the camera came into being. So you didn't need to do those realistic, take an impression of somebody. All that stuff was gone, and the person's, like what I said, filter became more important. So that was like, oh God, so I can't be wrong with whatever I do then. So I had that sort of So there's a couple of moments, like pivotal moments that I remember in my work. But do yourself, just do you. Yeah.
So
a whole thing on crops.
Very last question. Because for me now, I work in a photography space. I'm not like a but in that space where you're battling both fine art and commercial work, where with commercial you kind of need to enter a certain way.
Yeah.
So how do you now create it so that you don't affect that, fine tuning and let it enter your personal style?
Yeah, well, the ultimate goal is for people to go, you just see this is all the money, you just do whatever you that you want to do. That's the ultimate goal. But in between there, you got eat. So you do some of the work that feeds your soul and some of the other stuff that feeds your belly. So you kind of have to go, okay, I really don't want to do turtles, but I'm gonna have to do turtles. So stuff like that, you have to balance it. Hopefully, get to the point where you're over here, where it's, you know.
Or you can just just like Al.
Yeah. Stop starving.
Really good point, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more
If I could
questions?
talk something in here for a second, what I tried to do actually the first time I attended, the first teacher that influenced me in art was Lorna Reed, and that was in middle school. And when I got out of school, I was told to get a real job by my family because art is what's that foolishness.
There's a lot of similarities.
I got introduced to Leslie Beagleman, and I started volunteering at the National Gallery. And they actually sent me on to the community college to learn printmaking. And I got an introduction to printmaking. And from then I started collecting experiences and techniques in different mediums because I had ideas of things I wanted to create, but I didn't know the technique. I didn't know how to address the medium, how to start. So from then I went on a journey, and I'm still on that journey of learning different techniques, different mediums, from working with clay, pottery, those sort of things, to wire making, armature wire. I just collect techniques and mediums. And then the ideas, like sometimes someone says, like, I'll get the question, how long did it take you to make that? Well, the idea formed 4 or 5 years ago. I'm just now learning the technique to bring that to life. And so what I say to people is you don't have to become anyone else. You have ideas and creative thoughts. What you do collect are the techniques in order to express those things. Like, I've watched Randy and Gordon grow from, being like the best at doing t-shirts for graduation, cartoons on people's t-shirts, graphic signs for people's businesses. And they've collected techniques by watching other people and by just looking at art and stuff and trying to use those techniques that they see to bring their own expression and their own views of the world around them. So what I try to say to young people that are around me, even here, they're like, well, how do you do that? I said, I can show you the technique. I said, but it's not for you to copy someone else's work, it's for you to create for yourself. Now here's a technique. Now you bring something new from you to it. Nobody else in the world can be you. Nobody else in the world have your thoughts, your ideas, your creative flow. So learn the techniques, or get a little bit here. They say jack of all trades, master of none. You become the master of your ideas and your creativeness once you collect all these different techniques. And then you will develop your own techniques and blend that in with what you've learned, and it becomes yours. That's all I can say about the creative process. It's basically techniques that you collect, and you're always collecting every day. Everything that you do, you're collecting techniques and molding your creativeness in a sense.
It's a great answer. And I think Nasari, when she was talking about collecting techniques, I was thinking about you because outside of just sort of the formal art technique that you might learn in the classroom, how to work with charcoal or whatever it is, you have focused very much on using traditional techniques as well and doing them as authentically to the way that they were done as you can.
Right. Yeah, and I have so much respect too in that process. I cannot batch. I'm not good at it. And so, and crochet too, it really actually takes a lot of muscles that apparently my fingers do not they're not used to being used and that type of thing. So the patience that it took and those type of things. But then in order for those things to survive and to continue to be valuable, And to be viable for people to do them, we have to find new ways to do them, to use them. And that's what my interest is in them, taking them from just a craft, what people would consider craft, and then getting them on walls in galleries as fine art, intertwined into my work.
No, so when it comes to technique, you could actually learn from nature. Like when it comes to, so learning don't just mean like book learning or having a teacher. Like nature actually shows you a lot about pretty much everything. So for example, like the stained glass technique, the black drips of paint. Like to me, a lot of that came about like the deeper meaning. I was doing it a long time, but the real meaning behind it came to me like not really like last year. I told you. But anyway, it came from science actually, physics. Like there's something called dark matter that exists everywhere and it's in everything and it glues everything together. It glues atoms, it glues everything. It's in our bodies. No one will know what it is. But it's called dark matter. So now, because I know that, like, and I use the paint differently. It has a new meaning, and the technique itself, to me, I've grown just on that little piece of information. I've grown like tremendously just by knowing that. So technique don't just mean books and old masters. It also means learning from the universe, learning from the galaxy, learning from.
So much of human ingenuity comes from watching nature, right? It comes from watching, a beaver build a dam or watching a bird build its nest, right? It's these little techniques that all of us
breadfruit.
It's like when somebody says to me, like, why did you do something? And sometimes I'm just like, I'm literally inside, I'm like, because I'm intuitive.
Yeah.
So everything that was in me said I needed to do that, but sometimes it's a year later before you even really get what he's talking about, where you understand why it was coming through you at that time.
And sometimes it's accidental, right? You stumble across a piece of knowledge
I love
and
trips.
you realize. Do we have any? Sorry.
I thought a lot of things I thought were accidental, like when you look into it deeply, it's really not accidental because I found that most of it, I used to say, yeah, oh shoot, I messed that up. And then after a while, that's the best part of the thing. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It turns out to be the best part. So now it's like when I do something like that, I just automatically like, all right.
That's Bob Ross, happy little mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I would do a painting and all of a sudden I did something wrong. I would try to touch it, and then all of a sudden it changes everything. And then I was like, I wanted to touch a thing when I was like, leave it. Like, no, but this is like, leave it. And I just got the urge to touch it, and then you just leave it, and then you look back and you go, okay, I know why now. And it adds to it.
I think serendipity has a lot with art. As I do most of my art through the lens, and whether it's producing photos or video, it's not even serendipity. It's more like the experiences that we have practicing, learning as we go up, that make us do so much things unconsciously that we don't even realize.
Subconscious, and then we got stuff called God shots, like it's something just perfect and like,
All right.
alhamdulillah.
Because if we were concentrated and trying to do it intentionally, it wouldn't be perfect. Trying to draw a straight line and like this. But if you go like this, just intuitively, it's going to be natural, organic, right? So that is my take on serendipity in art creation, because you have all of that knowledge, all of that necessary knowledge that you've been collected, whether consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously.
Yeah, one of my God shots is in the thing there, the Turtle Meat Burger King thing.
Yeah.
The letters, the number of letters actually adds up and everything, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to tell anybody, it was literally 5 minutes at the computer and I just, Jesus! So that's one of my God shots.
Turtle Meat and Burger King.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And you see they've actually gone, the turtle, because you put the logo, the Turtle Meat print up in the airport. You know how much problems that caused because they had to go to the lawyers or the lawyer side. Went to the thing and they went to corporate, but now they've changed the Burger King, changed their logo back to that format.
I told you about corporate.
Yeah, but I
So
couldn't.
you should be suing them.
No, but it's 20. I was waiting for it to go into the public domain. It was 20 years, and during lockdown, they got it just before it went into public domain, so I have no.
Don't worry, you don't see what the guys are doing at NFT. They're literally just copying people's content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
The shooting gallery.
I do have a question. When is native son gonna do a redux of yesterday?
Sorry, maybe
I'll know we can't really
Sorry, this one. Because it's,
You know I
geez.
still do it though, right?
Yeah,
No matter
but
what
I
you do,
have,
matter.
like, you press on the gas now, is actually the brakes, like, I don't know, it just takes so much.
I think it'd be nice if you did an next raw show.
Yeah, raw might work.
Look
I
at
just wanted to
jump it in.
Yeah.
Just
Do
make
you
it-
all know
bring it
what
in
it
for a
takes to
bit.
put on a show? Do you all see maybe 5%? It's the same thing. We work at the museum. It's worse there. But you see 95 or 98% of the work is behind. So you don't see the
Yeah.
stuff that's edited out. The emails you got to do. One
While
little
we're
photo.
trying to be creative.
One little thing. It's got to look pretty at the end. One little thing like this could take like about 10 emails.
That's why I hired an agent.
Yeah.
Agent,
Well, hire our agent.
Hey, Pakistan. Listen, what I want all of you guys to do is to internalize yesteryear and think about a piece that talks.
And another thing we hate is
Personal
people telling
to you.
us, you know what you need to be.
No. I never said it's what you need to
I
be.
see the picture, but I can't do it myself.
I
I just need
need
somebody.
you guys to think
We
about
love.
when Native Sons was not inception, but when you guys really get seasoned and realize that, oh, I can get away with friggin' paint on paper and people appreciate it. Around that time, when you were really excited,
I
you
think
still
we're doing
saw
that. I
yourself.
think this is what needed. So I think for me, we kind of got the experience now we've got. You know, it was a great thing to show all our work and show the differences and go, well, okay, I like it all together, but that person I like the best. And I think that helped us, but now I think we're seasoned now. We don't necessarily need.
So February we're doing a show, yeah?
We could talk, at least talk about it.
Yes.
You
I
know,
wouldn't mind doing the raw thing, like I said, I bought the
Raw
sauce
is
with the meat on it. Just,
I'm preparing for a solo show. And I am driving myself
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It could be a different
And
form
I'm
of what the
thinking
first raw was
When
about.
when I'm done with that, I'm gonna relax. And
Yeah.
here we are talking about the show.
And you think when you got like 7 or 8, you started off with like about 5 of us, and then, if we get 9 artists, we can spread out this work. No, it should work like that. You can get 9 artists worth of work on top of you. So,
We're gonna get a visit in individually and everybody's gonna produce their
All
piece in
right.
February.
will you be the curator for it?
Yeah, man, everything's good.
And the administrator,
We'll do that administrative stuff. And not the little chicken.
and the therapist.
Hey, Martina.
So I just have a question. Do you ever struggle with kind of practicality and accessibility of your art? I mean, Ray mentioned kind of the parallel between like cat boats and art, which, that was something that was very much needed back then. And I kind of think like, especially now when, people are kind of struggling so much and art can be seen as like a luxury item and stuff. Is that something like, how do you keep your art like, do you keep your art accessible? Is that something that crosses your mind? Like,
Accessible as in what, pricing?
yeah, or like, how do you deal with that?
pricing. Like, I find with
Or you just
pricing,
mean getting it seen?
Yeah, just like art is like luxury versus like needs and wants, and
Well,
it's
I know
probably
right
a
now-
very big question.
I know right after Ivan, people did more paintings.
Yeah.
Necessarily, maybe a year or 2
So
later
that's
when
a
they had
good
walls.
Think like time
So I
to
did-
compare that now, like COVID times and like Ivan and
But I think COVID, we're all pretty busy, right? With art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people
Because people have
more
nowhere else
locked
to
inside,
spend.
they're in their homes.
yeah.
And then with the development, I think a lot of people are getting bigger homes, they want bigger walls, they want something that's different, and I think Native Sons has that to offer. Because a lot of other art, sort of cookie cut kind of styles, it's the same thing, but I think individually we have styles that people appreciate, not just us, but I mean art in general, and Ireland as well.
I think when you build collectors too, which is, it took a while, and, it took a while. But when you build collectors, then you kind of, that's really a good, when everybody else stops, they're still there and they're still wanting to to collect, so that's a good thing. In terms of when you're talking about making things accessible, like I'm just gonna be practical and call a thing a thing. If I know somebody who really wants a piece, and I know they genuinely cannot afford right off the bat what the painting deserves, we'll give them payment plans because I want some of my work to stay here. I don't want it all to be leaving the shores. So you can find ways when it's a genuine thing, you can find ways to work with people where you can help them to have the work. Because I've seen, we talk about collectors, so that kind of says like, people with a lot of money, a lot of house space or whatever that they, but it's not necessarily that. Sometimes there are some people with very little means who absolutely connect with work. When you deliver it, they cry, they burst into tears because they've connected with it, and that's very valuable. Yes, I still have to pay bills, so it's about maneuvering like that. I mean, I still struggle with it. Like, is this piece too commercial? Because I like it, but then I have to start thinking with that mind. How do I balance these? It's a constant, everyday thing. But for me, to be honest, it's only a battle because everybody else is saying, like, for me, if I love a piece, I love a piece.
I think a thing that helps I've noticed that helps artists in general throughout the island is painting the right size, painting for the sort of suited to the subject, and knowing where that painting's going to go. You're going to put something over your bed, whatever length that has to be. I think a lot of people would paint the wrong image for the wrong size, going in the wrong place. I think if you sort of keep certain components in mind, okay, if something's going to go over a bed or over a couch or a certain part of a house, and you do whatever style you want, but to that sort of size, it's easier for you to sell it, I think, art-wise, because a lot of people tend to paint a large painting, they love it, but people would love it, but they don't have a place to put that particular
But
piece.
it's kind of hard for, like, I cannot think, like, we've had this conversation.
Yeah, but to me, you
before.
kind of got to start off with the foundation.
Can't
and then-
I can't paint
No, it's
for
not
other
about painting
people.
people, but it's about painting practical. Because
I just-
sometimes.
Y'all get an idea, why not you show you? Got an idea?
It's just from a commercial perspective,
At least Horatio.
intuitive perspective.
I think you need to have both. You can still have your paint to for whatever size you do it. But if you're talking about in a sense where you can say more practical, how to make your works more accessible, you got to keep those things in mind. A lot of people paint something too big, and the subject wouldn't really work in a person's home that size or whatever. So you got to kind of balance it. That's all.
Remember that everybody does have gallery walls.
Standard wall is what, 9 something? Was it 9 foot? So,
I can't speak for everyone, but I found that when I started painting with a commercial tone in mind, and I started painting, it's like painting by numbers. It got really tiresome and cumbersome real fast. It was kind of like becoming like a performing monkey, and it just put me off. It put off my creativity, and I'm not in Cayman, but I saw how hard the National Gallery tried through the lockdown to keep artists motivated by offering all these different like competitions that they could enter online and stuff like that. But over here, basically, it got to the point where artists and people like myself were basically non-essentials. And basically, so what you are is not essential to the working of the world. Creativity is, what's that? And that was a thing. There were no galleries open. Artists weren't selling anything. I mean, and you got a feeling that, so what I am is inconsequential to the world. And it really messed with my mind.
Well, I don't think a lot of people are doing art in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, but
Within Ukraine, maybe the artists outside of Ukraine, but when you're suffering, art is a luxury.
It did.
I mean, it's a necessity too for higher levels of society. But when you're struggling,
I like the commercial. Can you build a house around this? So I like to create.
But what I'm saying is, it hit a reset button in me when it came to creating my work. And there are pieces of work that I won't sell. But what I would do is if someone I really cared about saw it and fell in love with it, you can have it. There were pieces of Nasaria's work when I first met Nasaria, and I absolutely love it. And I know it wasn't for sale, and I remember her giving me one of her long neck gloves. And Ivan came along, and I'll never forget this. Ivan came along and Ivanized that painting. And that I was upset, but then I thought nobody else in the world is ever going to own that. And I know that Nasaria will never ever make another long neck girl like
And she not give you any more.
Yeah, I couldn't.
That's what you do.
Okay, I think we'll take maybe one more question.
actually homeless after
When am I
Ivan.
gonna get my girl and not be colonized?
I had nothing but 2 black sacks, and I slept on the floor of the National Gallery. And I found, and every time something traumatic happens, I find it hits a reset button in me, and my work take on more meaning, and the actual monetary value of that work is only important in getting me more materials to be more creative.
I agree.
And that's where I'm at, because I before all of this nonsense started, it was like the creative in me was tied to the commercial value. And then I realized that they can cut off the value of your work anytime they want. But they can't cut off my creativity. They can't cut off my desire to create. And so I'm thankful that this happened, because it made me realize that how they value me and my work doesn't affect my creativity anymore, because I've broken that cycle of commercial value equals my value. It's not there anymore.
Sort of, I think this whole experience over the past 2 years has really pushed a lot of us to be truer to ourselves, and I think that really speaks to that.
Yeah.
You had a question in the back here?
If any efforts or awareness is being generated amongst young people, students, about, if I ask someone tomorrow and a kid, have you heard of the Native Sons? Are you all connecting with them? Are you mentoring? Are you doing anything to?
I speak for myself, I don't say necessarily visits, but I'm surprised at the amount of young people that actually heard of us. So I know we're influencing them.
We get calls a lot for the O-level projects,
Yeah.
I'm studying your work, I'm writing on your work, and so I think that the teachers are definitely talking about Native Sons in their classroom. Quite a number of young artists, some interns that I've met, will say, "Oh, I've been watching you for so long." I actually was at Public Beach the other day, and there was like a little kid who came up to me. It wasn't about my paintings, but he came up and he said, "I can't believe it's you. I just did a project on your poetry." I mean, that's almost as good as,
She threw sand
the
in his face and
Bible.
cursed.
So
Like Chris
I
used
think
to
it's
go-
being done.
When Chris used to do the schools and stuff, we always go in and teach, talk about native songs and
Everyone used to.
and then the
Yeah.
school, like their field trips.
Mhm.
When they come to the studio.
When we used to
just
go to
take
my house place, that was.
And I've been into sci-fi, but then also I've decided, how they have band camps when they have Badabanu and those type of things. So I have artist camp in my yard. It's really just free labor. But there are a lot of young people who are like, we just like to be there and like help you string the beads on this thing for this piece. And so there's a lot of sharing there, a lot of conversations, and then also me getting to know about them and what they want to do with their work. So I think that has a lot of value.